In this video, we'll be discussing dimensioning. We'll get started with simple dimensions like a linear, aligned, and radius and diameter. We'll go on to angular, and then eventually we'll talk about the appearance of our dimensions with dimension style. One of the things we want to make sure we have is a layer to put our dimensions on. In our previous video on layers, you were able to create layers to make one current, to change its color, that kind of thing. So we've done all of that here. So dim is my current layer. I want to use the toolbar for dimensioning. None of our toolbars are open right now, so I can go to Tools, Toolbars, Autocad, and Dimension. That opens up this toolbar here. If I place it up here, so we can see that on this dimension toolbar we have a lot of tools. At the beginning we have linear, aligned, radius, diameter, etc., etc. At the other end we have dimension style. In order to put our dimensions in, I can start with something simple like a linear dimension, and we'll see that when we pick a linear dimension, on the command line it says to specify the first extension line origin. If I pick down here near this endpoint, it then says on the command line specify the second extension line origin. If I picked over here, it then says specify the dimension line location. And when I click here, we'll see that it puts the dimension in. Now, as far as nomenclature goes, this line at the end and this line at the end are the extension lines. They extend beyond the part to the dimension line. The dimension line is the one in this case that's horizontal. It has the arrowheads on it. It has the piece of text that is the dimension. It breaks the text to put, or the dimension line rather, to put the text in. So let's try another one, a relatively straightforward one. If I said give me a dimension that went from this endpoint down here to that endpoint up there, if I drag horizontally I get the vertical portion. If I drag vertically I get the horizontal portion. So it just depends on which way you drag the cursor. If I drag it over here and click, it places the dimension in. Again, extension line, dimension line, and text. It automatically puts the text in. How the text appears we'll get into in just a little while. Things like how many decimal places, etc., etc. If I wanted to put another linear dimension in, I could say, okay, how about if I wanted to dimension how far this hole is, the center of this hole, from this corner? I can pick that corner down there, the center, and then drag over here. If I then want to do the entire length, I can say do that again from the same point up to here and click in here, and I've got the vertical dimension in. Now if I want to say how far is this thing, see how it says 2.5 over from the center of the circle from this left side. Again, I could say give me a linear dimension from that point to the center of the circle, and then when I come down it places it when I click on it. Okay, so that's a linear dimension. If I wanted to do an aligned dimension, let's say I wanted to know how long it was across this distance here, this angled line. If I picked a regular linear dimension, I always get either the vertical or the horizontal component. I'll escape because that's not what I want. I want the actual distance along it. If I pick the next one over called aligned, with this one it says specify the first extension line origin, second extension line origin, and dimension line location. When I pick it, now instead of having the vertical or horizontal, it actually has the distance along that line. Now that may or may not be the way we want to dimension this. We didn't dimension the other one that way, but that's what aligned does. Let me erase that one. Okay, let's say that I wanted to see what the radius or the diameter of one of these circles was. I'll do the diameter of this one, then the radius of this one. The diameter icon is the seventh one over from the left. If I click on diameter, all I have to do in this case is select an arc or a circle on the command line. When I pick my arc or the circle, I can drag this around until it's where I want it to be. When I finally am done, I click and it places it. And you'll notice it put the diameter symbol in front of the number. If I did the same thing with radius, this is the fifth one over. When I say radius, it says to select an arc or a circle. When I pick this object, same exact thing happens. The only difference is that this time it puts an R in front of the number instead of the diameter symbol. Notice it also put a little tick mark in the inside. We'll talk about that a little bit later when we talk about dimension styles. Okay, another one that we could try is one called angular. And with angular, if I say angular, it says to select an arc, a circle, or a line. Let's say I pick this line here. It then says pick another line. If I pick this one here, I get either the inside angle, which is 124 degrees, or this bottom one down here, which is whatever, 55 degrees, 56 degrees. Or this one out here, or that one in there. So it just depends on where I'm going to click which angle it is that it describes. In either case, it's one of two numbers, 124, 124, 55, or whatever it is, 55. So if I pick down here, it was 56. Yeah, that makes sense. So it puts the number in there. So if I tried that again, angular, pick one line, pick the other, and again I get 140 something, 146, or 34. So you can pick whichever one you want, click on it, and it places it. Let me escape, or I'll erase those two, and let's see a different way of using angular. So we just picked two lines. If I do angular again, another choice on the command line is select arc, circle, line, or specify vertex. To get specify vertex to happen, all I have to do is hit enter, because that is the default. So when I hit enter, it says specify the angle vertex. So let's say I pick the vertex is where two lines meet, which is this point here. It then says specify the first angle endpoint, specify the second angle endpoint, and now I get only two angles, the inside or the outside, where we got 4 before when we picked two lines. Now when we pick a vertex and two endpoints, you get two angles. Let me try that again. Angle, instead of picking two lines, I'm going to hit enter. Now when I pick the vertex, and then I pick one angle endpoint and another angle endpoint, I get two angles, the inside or the outside angle. When I click, it places the angle in there. Let me take a look at a couple of other things we have here. We have one called baseline and one called continue. I'm going to erase a couple of dimensions so we have some room to work here. Let's say that I wanted to put in a continuous dimension. In other words, a dimension that went across here, and another one here, and another one here. I could do it with linear dimensions that went from here, let's say, to the center of the circle. There we go. And place the first one. And then use linear over again and start over with the same initial point and then a new second point and place it, and then do it again with a third linear, but I have to still pick the first point and the second point and then place it. Well, let's see if we can't do that a little bit easier. I'll erase these three. When I use this one called continue, I still have to put in one regular old dimension. So I'll put one linear dimension in the direction I'm going to go. I'm going from left to right, so I'll start here and put the other one here and place it. So far it's no different. But when I say continue instead of another linear dimension, it only asks me for a second extension line origin on the command line, and again a second extension line, so I could just keep going, clicking and clicking with one point, and it puts in the entire dimension. So it's considerably quicker if you have a line of dimensions that does that. Let's try that again on this side here just so we can see again what it does. Erase those. I could say give me a linear dimension, and let's say I start with this one and go to the center of that one and place the first one. If I then said I wanted to continue, let's say that I picked the center of this circle and then this endpoint up here. With two clicks I put in two more dimensions, where if I'd used regular linear it would have taken 6 additional clicks, not just 2. So it could be quicker. Okay, there's another type that's very similar to this. Let me erase those again. There's one called baseline. With baseline dimensioning, we still have to do what we did before. In this case, start with a linear dimension in the direction you're going to go. But this time, instead of clicking on continue, I'm going to click on the one to the left of it called baseline. When I click on baseline, it says to only specify a second extension line, just like it did with continue. But this time when I pick it and pick another one, you'll notice that instead of lining them up continuously, it goes from one baseline. It goes from here to the first point, from here to the second point, from here to the third point. This is a more common way of dimensioning mechanical drawings, where continue would be much more common in architectural drawings. Let's try another one. We'll go from the top down this time. So let's say I went from this point to the center of this circle for the first dimension. If I then said baseline rather than continue, if I picked another second point and another second point, again with 2 clicks, I put in 2 more dimensions. So that works a bit better if you have a number of dimensions rather than having to put each one individually. Okay, that's about it for the basic dimension types. We've done radius, diameter, linear, aligned, and angular.